Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The ceremony is about to begin. Welcome to the Ring of Fire podcast, where we ignite creative inspiration. Welcome to episode 7. Today, I am super excited to welcome on to this episode Alycia. Alycia is a tattoo artist who has been tattooing for over 30 years. Many of us in this area can attest to the amazing skills of her as an artist, but also her beauty and the energy and impeccability that she puts into her art as a tattoo artist. I have many tattoos from her. In fact, most of my left arm, most of my right arm, and almost my entire back is covered by ink from Alycia. It is a continuous, ongoing work in progress, and she puts so much thought and care and creativity into it. I am excited to get into a conversation with her. She, back in the day, took classes from me with fire dancing and performed in some shows. So we're going to start with a little bit of the fire to ignite that creative spark. And then we'll get into her as an artist and talk about what she does and her experience with art. So thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share it with anyone who you think might be interested in watching this episode. So enjoy the episode today with Alycia. Let's go forward and welcome her on to today's episode. Thank you. Hi, Alycia. Welcome to the Ring of Fire podcast. How are you?
Good. How are you? I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Yeah, I'm excited to do this. This is going to be fun. Kind of a little trip down some memory lane to the fire and a little bit of coming into the moment with where life has come. So, yeah, just to acknowledge I learned that when I ask someone to do a podcast, I should verify that this is a YouTube podcast, meaning that there's visual to it as opposed to just talking. That was good.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I'm excited. I'm stoked to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Do you get like nervous? Do you get like stage fright before you step up on stage?
Absolutely.
Do you have that right now?
A little bit, just because I don't know, I don't know I don't know. I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm really on point and can just like talk fluidly, and other days are a little bit more jumbly, and I'm not sure what today is going to be. So,
Yeah, me neither, actually. So it's going to be an exploration, right? Igniting creative inspiration. Okay, so let's jump in with the burning question.
hmm.
What drew you to fire dancing?
Okay. Well, probably Burning Man was the first time I really got, like a lot of people, got exposed to fire dancing, actually in the flesh, and right in front of me. And of course, it's very alluring and like sexy, but there was something about it where I was already so much of a dancer, and adding fire to it, I love performance, and I love dancing, and I love fire too. So it was just like, oh my God, why haven't I done this yet? And there was a little bit of like, they just look so cool, right? So it's like, I want to look that cool. But also it's like, you want to be able to move like that and stuff. And I knew that I already could. So I was excited to try fire too. And then
Yeah,
it came with a bunch of like new things that were awesome that I didn't even expect, that I didn't even know I needed from fire dancing. So that was exciting.
yeah, excellent. So Yeah, just like the like Burning Man and seeing the fire and then knowing that you could dance and move and getting called to it. And it just was like it drew you towards it, ignited that creativity and that inspiration, and you went with it.
Yes. And then as luck would have it, I'm a tattoo artist, as you know, but for the people on YouTube, I'm a tattoo artist. And I had a client one day and I was working on her back piece and she's like, "Yeah, I'm a fire dancer." And I was like, "That's awesome. How do you do that? How do you like go learn how to be a fire dancer?" And she's like, "Well, actually the lady that teaches me is like right around the corner and it was you." And then so I was like, give me the details." So I
Yeah.
signed up. So, but it was all like back to back. It was like I went to Burning Man, I saw the fire dancing. I was like, man, that looks cool. And then next thing I knew, there she was in my seat telling me about you. So
Yeah. It's cool how the universe works like that sometimes, right?
synchronous.
So I want to pause here for just a moment because it occurred to me that I know you so well, I feel like that I forgot to ask you who are you as the first question. So how about if we do that as the second question, then we'll come back to the fire dancing, talking about Jumbly.
Yeah,
Um, so who are you? Share with the world who you are, Alycia.
I'm not sure yet. I think I'm still like getting there. My name is Alycia Harr. I live in Grass Valley, California, and with my husband and my kiddo. And today it's snowing, which is not me, but and then I work as a tattoo artist. I've been tattooing for almost 30 years now in Sacramento, at Leonardi Tattoo, with my partner Jen, and well, she brought me on. And I'm an artist in many different ways. I work with acrylics and I work with dancing and performance art. And I used to be a drag performer. I'd like to actually get back into that, and back into fire. And kind of a lifelong seeker of esoteric knowledge, and that's kind of in a nutshell, like what's going on with me, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so acrylics, painting, tattoo art. Like my sleeve doesn't go up far enough to get it all in. My whole back, the other arm is covered. I shouldn't have wore long sleeves today so I could market some of your tattoo work. Yeah, and dancing, like doing drag and fire dancing. So really immersed in a creative life.
Yes, as much as I can be.
Mhm.
Being a professional and a mom and stuff, you kind of like work it in. When life shifts like that, you work it in where you can work it in, like it's a different kind of schedule, you know.
Mhm.
Yep, I do what I can.
Is creativity who you are, or is it the thing you do?
I think it's who I am. Because if I think back to childhood, it was like bursting out of me, and if I didn't express it, I felt like I would literally die, like I would literally perish, like I had to draw. That's another thing I do, is like a lot of pen and ink, just sort of sketchbook style stuff that's like kind of private art, or therapeutic, you could say. um and I think because of that, because like I will get to points where like I need to express myself even if nobody else sees it, or in a really personal way, or I will need to dance, I will need to move, I will need to like, it feels like almost an extension of survival for me. That I think that creativity is more like who I am and not just what I do. I mean, there is, of course, when you have a creative job like tattooing, that can get a little mechanical. Like you will create formulas for, because everybody's like, how can you be so creative every day? Sometimes I'm not, like sometimes people experience burnout or exhaustion or emotional, something is tying up your emotions for the day, or whatever, or the week or whatever it is. And but you still create kind of formulas where you can create, you know, produce art for like other people. So there is definitely moments where some creativity is what I do. And then, but I still feel at a baseline that creativity is more who I am than what I do.
Yeah. Yeah, creativity is who you are and flows through you. And then there's different expressions and ways that that energy moves through you in the world. And sometimes where it's in process because there's an emotion or there's some feeling of burnout, or maybe the inspiration isn't flowing. And yes, when your art is your job, when your creative expression is your career, is your job, is your passion, is your hobby, is your life, it takes some extra care, wisdom, and cultivation to be with that. And burnout can happen for sure.
Yeah, very lucky to have such a creative job. That's what I wanted as a kid, was to have a career where I could create art, and tattooing was perfect for me for that. But even with having like the job of your dreams, so to speak, like yeah, there is still those days where it gets a little mechanical. So yeah, that happens too.
Yeah, how do you care for your muse? How do you take care of and nurture your muse?
I need alone time to do that. Like I need to be able to daydream. I need to like kind of withdraw from the world and like all the distractions of the world. Um, Especially now it seems like everything is very distracting and in your face. And I say that mostly because of cell phones and technology and of course the news and all this stuff. Like, we have constant access to something to distract us at all times, whether it's current events or the little computer in our pocket. And for me, I have to take a break from all that, like, and go out in nature, go on a hike, or the opposite, like hole up in a dark space in my bedroom and just go inward, meditate. Or for me, it's like kind of like withdrawing from the external world and going in is like how, if I'm really feeling overwhelmed and tapped out or burnt out, like I have to like kind of reconnect with, you know, what inside me needs to be expressed.
Yeah, so there's this awareness of the where you're at in the process. There's like going into the cocoon. There's like the caterpillar that's
Mm.
eating its way into its own cocoon, into its kind of demise. And then there's the process of soup inside the cocoon and to become like the butterfly, right? So the way you nurture your muse, it sounds like, is by being very aware of where you're at in the process. Are you in, you know, butterfly bloom stage, or are you in like the eating into the cocoon phase, or inside the cocoon, and what's needed? What does your muse need?
Right now, I think I'm definitely being called to go back into the cocoon. Like I've led a very external kind of life for the last few years, and I feel like I definitely need to go inward more. So I'm definitely feeling the call of like, whereas like when I was, like say 10 years ago, it was very much like outward exploration, being inspired by all the amazing kind of synchronous, like magical experiences in the world, and going and traveling and like, and expanding out. That's where I was kind of getting inspiration. Now it's like I'm being called to be drawn more into the cocoon and like sort of like be still and see what comes up in the stillness.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Right, because there's that outward exploration adventure, go out, seek in the matrix,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then there's the go inward and journey within, right? And go into that mystical, magical, like fun exploration, but as more of a inner journey than an outer journey. And I'm hearing that that's where you're at, is being called to go more into that inward space.
Yes, definitely.
Mhm. Yeah.
Hmm.
Is that so that's how you honor your muse? And is there do you sense that there's a new creation on the rise at some point? Like it's like going into that cocoon, the caterpillar doesn't know it's going to become a butterfly. I mean, we don't know, but we think it doesn't know that it's going to become a butterfly, right? So is there some new colors emerging for you on the horizon and you're kind of feeling that like I'm not really sure what that is yet and
Yeah, I definitely like I have a few like kind of little seedlings that I'm trying to nurture right now. There's like little pieces of things that want to be expressed. And there's also like a desire right now I really want to learn a few new techniques and master those because I'm getting some visions of like combining some techniques that I'm not really familiar with like what I do already to kind of like elevate some of my art, my acrylic art specifically, my paintings and stuff. Um, so I might be doing that, but I do feel like it's not very clear yet. Like it's like I'm getting like fragments of little things I kind of want to explore. And I feel like it's part of a bigger picture of what I want to create, but I'm just not quite there yet to see. And for me too, part of the process is even when I do have like a solid idea of like this is what I want to do with my paintings, you know, I'll start the painting with all this kind of like material that I've all these rough drafts and all this material that I've kind of like accumulated through like dreams and meditation and pondering and all this stuff and like putting things together, maybe some collages, and I'll go to paint. And even still, something else, once I go into that flow state, something else will come in. And by the end, I've produced something different than what I had in mind, but that holds like a little bit more energy to it, there's always surprises, and they're cool surprises. They're not like it's not like I messed that up, It's more like how did I even know to do that? It's like something sort of took over. So it's kind of neat because even when I do get my clear ideas during the process, something will kind of like come in and like direct or like flow through me a little bit to alter that idea a little bit in the moment and create something, that's a little bit bigger than I even imagined, which is nice. Like, thank you.
yeah, tell me a little bit about that feeling of when you give into the process and like something comes through you, moves through you in the art, and then you look at it and you're like, wow, okay. Like what, tell me a little bit about either that feeling or that process or like how do you get into that? How do you find yourself into those moments?
When I finally carve out space for myself to like be immersive in the moment, like it's hard when you have like a schedule that includes like all the things you have to do, right? And it's like and because I really like to, if I'm going to go paint, I'm setting like a whole day or night aside to go into that space, and I need to like kind of not be interrupted. So it comes when I create that kind of space for myself. Um, and I know I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to pick anybody up. I don't have to do anything. And then I can kind of like let go and let it take over. And it's like, I guess a little trance-like. I mean, like people talk about flow states, and it's very much that, it's very much where like your cognitive brain just sort of takes a back seat, and like you're just sort of doing and flowing, and there's this like energy that's coming through you, and you're sort of the conduit for it. So it feels in that sense like kind of trance-like. Usually have music going, and everything in that moment is just about this painting or whatever I'm doing. It's usually painting though when it's stuff like this. Or dancing, like I can also like completely when I was a kid, I loved to go to goth club. Well, I still love to go to goth clubs, not when I was a kid. So like, but like that's also sort of a space that's designed for that energy. It's a time that's designed for that expression, like you go to the club, it's like you're going there for me to dance. Some people like to get wasted and hang out with their friends, and that's cool too, but I'm going to dance. And so it's a lot easier to just like get swept up into the music and just super get into it and just let go. And, you start doing moves. It's like, I didn't even know my body could do that. So for me, it's carving out, in short, it's carving out like the space and the time to be able to surrender to the energy. And I feel like in our lives today, especially, there's a lot of busyness, you know? I mean, like speaking for myself, I feel like there's a lot, maybe a little too much busyness, you know? So now it feels like it's a little bit more of a concerted effort to like make sure that I have some time set aside like that. And sometimes it can be difficult, you know, because, you know, sometimes you get that feeling to go express yourself and it's not on a schedule. It will just come. But if there's too many things on your plate and you can't address it, it's almost like it's very frustrating, you know, because it's like I have this thing that wants to come out, but I'm busy right now. So, and sometimes it's like, well, I'm not going to be busy in 2 weeks. Well, what if you don't have that same feeling? But sometimes set and setting, kind of like when you're doing psychedelics, you know, you got to have your set and setting. Sometimes establishing that just helps ignite it, you know? So it's an interesting thing to try to balance this creativity with schedules, you know?
Right. The creative versus the structure and trying to fit
Yeah,
the creative into a structure. I
yeah.
think that's probably a challenge that, many creative people and artists run into is, trying to create on a particular, yeah, like calendar or structure. And yeah, you talked a little bit about mistakes in like the art. Tell me a little bit more about like those mistakes. Like I think you said that the mistakes turn into sometimes like something that you hadn't really thought of before, or they turn out like maybe better or
Yeah, they're not really so much mistakes. It'll be like more like just unexpected turns of like, you know, like I'm thinking I'm going to execute this thing in this particular way, you know, in a painting, sorry. And then and then it just ends up being different, but it somehow ends up being better than I was even trying to go for. And I think that that's part of those like kind of surrender moments too, you know, just like you're so caught up that it's like you think you're going to do this with your painting, but it turns out that like in the moment, you know, you feel that you have to add a different layer or do this thing. But when you're done, I find myself sometimes looking at my own paintings being like, I don't even know how I did that. Like, would I even be able to recreate that? I don't even know, you know, like, because it felt like something else kind of did it, you know?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that surrender into that moment and there's the resistance that happens, right? So I think of it like the way I can describe it is like this. And I don't know, when was the last time you picked up your poi and did any poi?
Oh my gosh. It's probably been almost well, yeah, probably almost a year. I mean, like, because I've got practice poi too. I have, I have to confess something very sad. My poi stuff got molded. It got
Oh,
wet, and then like, you know, like my actual fire tools, they got molded and they got
it's
wet.
fixable. I mean,
Fixable? Cool.
I mean, yeah, you
I'll
clean,
just
you
get
mean
new wicks.
the wick molded?
Yeah. I'll
Oh,
just get new
yeah.
wicks, huh?
I mean, honestly, I don't know. I mean, for viewers watching, and this may not be the fire dancing community's way to suggest with this. Someone else might have a way more intelligent way to respond. But I'm thinking, soak it in fuel and light it on fire. Doesn't that take care of it? I mean, it's
Yeah, it
fire,
would.
right? Like if it was a log
Would.
and the log
Yeah.
had gotten wet and grew mold, I don't know, what kind of mold it grew. I don't know all of the chemical components of it and all that. So maybe it's not the best answer, but honestly,
That's
if the
probably
wicks
a
are
good
still
idea.
good and I'm thinking, why not just fire dance with it?
That's probably a good idea. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. But
Perhaps a little bit further looking into it, but it's been about a year since you picked up your play.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, no judgment. It's okay, right? So, but what I was thinking is, do when you're learning something with poi, right? And we'll just take something really simple. You're spinning forward, right? And then you start to try to cross the body with your arm, right? But every time you cross, you're whacking your your right arm instead. So it's like clunk, clunk, and it starts to get frustrating, right? Because every time you do it, it's just like, ow, ow, right?
Yeah.
That's the resistance because ultimately there's a like a neural pathway, a pattern that's in there. We have this idea about how it should be, where it should go, what should happen, and our body has a certain pattern associated with that. So when we're fighting against it, we start, you know, bumping up against it a little bit, right? And then that's where the mistake comes,
Right.
whether it be in painting, art, or whatever. And, but ultimately, I see those as doorways to breakthroughs
Yeah.
because it's just a matter of moments where before, like in poi, if the person learns, oh, change the angle just a little bit and it will actually go past the arm as opposed to clubbing into the arm. And, but it takes like extra time to get there because they're battling against it for a while. Like, no, 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 it should be like this until there's that, oh, over there, not right there.
It kind of reminds me of like I tried to do. Remember when we went down to Shiva Ray's yoga teacher training?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And like I was trying to get into crow pose and I kept saying my body can't do it. My body can't do it. Like it's too heavy or it won't do it or whatever. And she was like, no, that has nothing to do with it. And she just like zipped like you angle your arms like this, you put your body weight over here, and you put your and next thing I knew, she had shifted my body just from little tweaks and little different angles than what I was doing with my body. And next thing I knew, I was in crow pose. No problem. Had nothing to do with all the weird blocks that I had in my head about my body and all this stuff and what it wouldn't do. It just was like small tweaks, and it was just like, and then there I was, like kicking it in crow. And like I was like, I didn't even know I could do this, and it's like the same with poi where it's like, you just keep not being able to get the the move and then you just tweak it and it's like there it is.
Right. So the message is see beyond your limitations. I mean, that's like what
Yeah.
Shiva did in that moment was she saw beyond your limitations to show you that something is possible beyond what you're telling yourself in those moments.
Yes.
So the idea is when we're bumping up against something to surrender a little bit and let go of the, limited story that we're telling ourselves about it.
Yes. And yeah, a lot of it's about surrender, I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have a question for you. I asked somebody that you tattooed to what question they would like me to ask you.
Okay.
So the question is, how do the differing shapes of the human body affect your approach to realizing your art?
Oh, I don't think the shapes have um the only way that the shapes really like affect my art is because I look at the body and I see where it flows, uniquely to each person. So like in my head, my art doesn't just fit like one body type or one size. It's like if you tell me what you want, and where you want it, I'm gonna see where it flows on your body. And so oftentimes that'll include like drawing directly on them. So it
Right.
matches, you know? Um, so the differing bodies, it's not really about like, you know, having to adjust my art. It's like the flow of their body directs the art anyways, because it's all kind of unique to the individual. So no two arms are the same. Like I'm gonna draw if somebody wants something winding around their arm, it's gonna be drawn for their arm.
Right.
Not not like like a prototype first. And then I guess to say like everybody is sort of like factored into the design from the start instead of having to adjust my art afterwards to fit a body. You know what I mean?
Right. So you're looking at like, and I know from we just did this in a session actually, where you were like we are taking pictures of my body and looking at its shape, its flow, how the
Yeah.
lines moved, and then that was like that's part of your approach. So like that question is, how do the shapes of the human body affect your approach to
Okay.
like realizing the art that is like coming forward, right, in a piece. So, and I think you answered that by saying that you're looking at the shape of the body and noticing how someone's body flows and moves and where their lines and curves are, and then you're listening to what they want, and then that is your approach.
Right. Their body shape informs the flow of the tattoo.
Mhm.
That's what it, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like yeah, you're looking out and getting inspired, like someone else is giving you an idea. And I mean, I'm adding my own, like what I've done. I mean, except maybe I don't know how many people come in and say, "Oh, I'm having this like download or upgrade and I've got this thing going on and it's like I'm seeing this and that, this and that. What are you gonna draw?"
Not as many. Like that was a little bit more rare. You know?
And
Or
by
like
the way,
descripting like emotions and like
yeah, you've done a great job with my very abstract way of communicating and being able to like help me organize that. So for anyone who does watch this, like you've really done a great job at taking the abstract and bringing it into something that is like, oh, right, that makes total sense and it is something that is identifiable.
oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a skill in an art, right? I'm good at this, like abstract, right? But being able to convert it into something that people can say, "Oh, yeah, that's a tree," or "That's a this," is where like that's a challenge for me. So, mhm.
I kind of have a passion for symbolism too. I always have been drawn to like symbolism and even like mythology, which kind of like, different characters in mythology can symbolize different processes that people are going through or like different traits and stuff. So I think because of that, when people tell me certain words that may not be as tangible, they're not giving me nouns. Like they're giving me like adjectives, feelings to like, draw off of. I can in my because I pay attention to symbolism and patterns and stuff so much because I love it so much. Like it'll immediately like some words will just trigger like, oh, obviously a pomegranate, or obviously like feathers, or obviously you need a triangle for this, like, you need some sacred geometry, like, you need like whatever that will kind of bring out that concept that you're going for, So I think that's kind of fun that like I do love symbolism in all forms. So I think that helps.
Yeah, so like that inspiration, like symbolism and mythology and kind of finding some inspiration and meaning and purpose from within some of those symbols and stories.
And spiritual texts and everything like that. They're always rich with a lot of symbolism as well. So, all that.
Is there a particular like myth, story, or character that's speaking to you right now?
Um, I've actually been thinking about. It's funny because there's a lot of different pantheons that I feel like are very accessible. And even though I'm not Hindu, for some reason the Hindu gods are very, very I just really love and appreciate the Hindu pantheon. And so normally I kind of like reach over in that direction, but lately like I've been kind of thinking about like Roman and Greek gods because they kind of transfer to each other. They change the names, but like Jupiter and Zeus and stuff like that, although not him. But so immediately what brings to mind is Persephone for some reason. And I know that she is, I mean, the story is that she's kind of kidnapped and brought down to the underworld. And her mother Demeter is so sad that she creates winter for us. So maybe I'm just thinking about that because of the snow outside in the winter and stuff. I'm thinking about Demeter. And and then the symbol for Persephone is usually like is pomegranates, and that's kind of a wintry fruit. So maybe I'm just kind of like thinking about that. But also like there's been a few things that like I've been battling a little bit with like some sadness lately over a couple things that have been going on. So it could be that I'm relating to Demeter a little bit more than Persephone. And that's why Persephone is kind of coming up to kind of remind me of Demeter and her wintry feelings. when her daughter's gone.
Right. So is that, and that's helping you process the sadness a little bit that you're
Yeah,
experiencing.
because there's always a spring, right? Like Persephone comes back up out of the underworld, right? And then there's springtime and there's summer and stuff like that. So there's seasons to everything instead of feeling like a feeling is going to come and stay forever, that it can just be like Demeter's winter and it will pass.
Right. You can surrender into that feeling
Yeah.
and know that it will pass. So I have a couple more questions for you. So one, I want to ask you about like challenging emotions or creative block or, I mean, as an artist or a creative person, when I feel like my well runs dry, which it never does, it's only a limited belief and a perception, but there are times where, I think we all feel like, or with, and it ties into the burnout. There's just those times where it's like, oh my gosh, like it feels like I'm not creating, I haven't created, I don't know what to create, it's not moving through, or I've over created and performed like thousands of shows and like done millions of tattoos, and and then you're just kind of like, so that how do you, when you get into those places of like the burnout and the blocks, what's helpful to you?
Well, sometimes like feeling the feelings, like because I have found that if I don't feel them, if I try to push them down, it just sort of prolongs it. So if I go ahead and have the fit, or I go ahead and I stay in bed for those days, like there's going to be, if you go ahead and like surrender to the feelings and those impulses they bring of like, actually literally acting sad or acting burnt out or like, I don't even want to get out of bed, like those kind of things. You will, if you do that, you will, I mean, there was a time where like it would keep going, but like now it feels like that also wears itself out. Like it's like, okay, we've done that, we've sat in that. And now I'm starting to feel the feelings of like, restlessness from that. Like I want to change things up. I want to go move. I want to go like, I don't want to stay in this forever. I'm starting to physically feel like I want to start processing and, you know, getting out of the underworld. Even though supposedly Persephone does fall in love with Hades, but still, she's moving out of the underworld and stuff like that. And so I feel like it's sort of like naturally, if you can move through the process, I just feel like sometimes though it's hard because there will be so like the matrix will be pulling at you, if you with all the needs and the demands and the distractions and stuff, and it's hard to like go into the cocoon and then like, and go ahead and do that and then emerge. But I feel like if you give your space to do that, like you will want to come back out, you know? And that's when like you might get new inspiration if you just give yourself that moment to stop and like feel.
Do you think that that is what the symbology of Persephone falling in love with Hades means? Is that
Ooh.
he fully surrendered into that feeling and came into a place of love, which is what then allowed that cycle to complete itself fully, naturally and fully, in order for the natural spring to arise, the call to move forward to the next. Because so many times we're resisting going fully there, right?
Right.
So perhaps that symbology of her falling in love was her way of giving herself into that experience so that she would feel the natural fall, and that cycle would fully complete itself.
Like I'm totally embracing it. Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but that makes sense. And then like according to the myth, this is a cyclical thing that brings about her season. So she goes back and she comes, she goes back down and she comes back up. And that is kind of like life, right? Like, it's like they'll be like, "Ha, I beat it. Like I'm out of the depression. I'm in the sunshine. I'm doing good. Like never going back." But then, there'll be triggers or whatever, and you kind of like you descend back down, and you have to kind of explore that. Like when you think you're done with old wounds, turns out you're not. There's another layer to it. And so there is a very cyclical kind of like sort of thing with healing and sadness and, health and happiness and sadness and, the despair and stuff like that in life. So that's kind of, yeah, that's pretty cool. I hadn't thought of it that way, but I think that that could definitely be an embracing the situation sort of thing, really letting it in.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought of it that way either up until that moment. So,
Cool. Yeah.
um, okay, I want to ask you another question, and then before we kind of move on to the next thing, but I want to ask, is there anything that you would like to share, or you would like me to ask, or an answer that you want to give to a question that has not been asked, that just open space to express and share whatever you feel you would like to share about your life, your story, your message here in this moment?
Oh my gosh. Nothing specific is coming out. Like, I think I might want to mention how, like, what fire dancing maybe did for me that was kind of unexpected. Since we were talking about things earlier about like these unexpected turns in the art process, it's like you go to spin fire to be the cool kid. But then it turns out there's like, I mean, I did, okay, let's be real. But then it turns out that you like learn these like more subtle lessons that really needed to be learned, that you didn't even know. And like for me, I've always had like tremendous body image issues, like super bad as and like, and it's just like kind of this lifelong process of acceptance. But there was this really wonderful aspect of fire dancing that really embodied, like I felt embodiment in a way that I had never felt before. Like before when I would dance, it was almost like a transcendent sort of thing, like where I was like, where there was this energy moving through me, but it was like flow state and it was more transcendent, right? Like it was going up out of the body and kind of being this and letting myself kind of transform into this other. Whereas fire dancing, because you're literally on fire, you know, there's fire spinning around your body, very close to your body. And you can hear the whoosh, whoosh, which is a really cool sound. If anybody ever gets a chance to hear the sound of fire flying past your ear, it's really great. But you have to be in your body. Like you have to be present completely in your body. And that was a gift that I'd been trying to escape my body for so long that was a gift that I never had given myself before, was to be totally in my body and totally present. And there was no way to fire dance without being completely embodied in the moment. And yeah, that was a space that I just never had really explored with myself before. And so that was really incredible. And it kind of like tripped me out at the time, but it also like it gave me a new confidence in myself, like, that this, really awesome expression and dance way of dancing, that can be very performative, I mean, it is very performative, other people are watching, can be such a like wealth of like internal confidence. You feel sexy, you feel like empowered and just very present too. And also at the same time, like it's a confidence that's also very humbling at this, because if you start getting too caught up, and you're gonna hit yourself with the fireball, like so you gotta like it's kind of like this humbling presence, but all also at the same time very empowering. I like to ramble, so I don't know if that made sense, but like
Very well articulated. And yes, like it, fire dancing does bring us into our bodies. And I think that in my experience, not everybody, right? And not all communities, because there are ones where I think there's the trance out, go out, you're just kind of zoning out doing the
yeah,
thing. But part of, at least for me, it was about embodiment. It was an embodiment practice, and it was a positive body conscious experience. And that was especially, in the years when you were connected with the group and taking classes, it was all women, right? So
Mhm.
it was a women's body conscious, body positive space where all body shapes were welcome, and everybody was encouraged to get embodied and kind of face those uncomfortable places, but practice being okay with it, right?
Yeah,
And the shows were a way of, one, being an inspiration to others for that.
yes,
Also, the audience was a witness to a person's own healing, right? And so I love that you just shared that, because that was a large part of at least the underlying intention behind what I was like putting out there. And I don't know that a lot of people get that. So I thank you for like saying that, because it ultimately was like, wow, like you really got that. So
oh
uh,
yeah, I got that
that's
one
super
loud and
cool.
clear. I probably needed it a lot. And it was like you said, inspiring people. I got a couple women that came up to me after a couple different shows, and they were just like, thank you, because they expressed, they were like, oh, as a bigger person, like I just never saw like a role model of somebody confident and sexy and enjoying themselves and dancing and moving fluidly and confidently before, until I saw you fire dancing, and I was just like, oh, like, because it's like, for me, it's important for me, like, I mean, a lot of people really diss social media, but like I have found being able to watch other bigger bodied people doing like these amazing things, doing headstands and like these incredible yoga poses and dancing all, and doing all these amazing hikes and stuff like that. And all these things I always like thought I couldn't do, that my body would hold me back for. And they're doing it. And it's like it's incredibly inspiring to me. And like to be able to be in a position, thanks to you, where I was able to be that for like two ladies, it's like, that's really cool though, because like, it's given me so much confidence and empowerment to know that like this is not a limitation, and then like, so hopefully that was able to be an inspiration to them too, and they said it was, so that's great.
And I can say that it was way more than two ladies.
Oh,
Like for all of the women in the group, and then eventually men too, because I learned that this issue of body self-image is not just tied to a gender, it's actually
no,
tied to a human thing.
it
And
is.
I have yet to learn if my cat has body conscious issues, but
Might.
like ultimately at least humans. But I know that there's been countless numbers of people who have shared with me, whether it be like instantly or years later, or children who saw us perform, and then like they're now like 18 or 19, which is crazy to me, but
Oh,
ultimately like, and I see them at their parents like 50th or 60th gala, and then they're like, I saw you perform when I was, and they have this very distinct memory of something that has helped shift, change, and inspire their life in a way. And that, so whether it's like body consciousness or creativity or wherever it's coming from, like definitely touched a lot of people there. So we just don't always get the feedback. So the two you did, but like
yeah.
yeah.
And that's
And all the people, the other performers and students that were part of the group as well that have come through. And then that lesson continues to weave through you with every bit that you do on somebody's body, that healing, that wisdom, that energy becomes part of what you're bringing to the table as someone is on your table and you're like inking them, right?
yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Well, I would love to share something with you right now.
Okay,
Like,
cool.
I really haven't tried this, so I don't know how this is going to work. So this is an experiment, but I am going to share my screen here, and I want to take you back to Oh, there we go. Yeah, I want to take you back to July of 2008.
Oh my gosh.
Can you see my screen?
Not yet. It's thinking about it. It's saying that you're starting to screen share.
Okay, it's coming on.
It's coming on. It's just taking a minute.
Tell me when you can see it.
There it is.
July 2008. Alycia, this is your first burn.
Really?
Yeah, I videoed your first burn.
Oh my God. Are those palms? It looks like it's like those the finger. That was really cool. Yeah. That's
Okay.
really cool. That was my first or are those are palms, but they look tall. I remember
They
those.
were the rings, those little things.
Ring.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
they went on your finger and yeah, the rings.
Cool.
But I do have another thing to share too. So let me try this one actually. And let me just get this open here before I share it.
Oh, there it is. Yes. Oh, I remember that. That's
Yeah,
cool. I never saw a video though. Ooh.
I'll put this out on YouTube actually. It's been a while, but yeah, I can put this out and release this video. But this is the first, no, this is the second fire spectacular, and this was a year after you had started taking lessons. So the first video is your first burn, July of 2008, and this would have been August of 2009.
And I was the lonely fisherman.
Yeah. I have, let's see if I jump forward a little bit. There's another one in here where you're doing, oh, you got some doubles in this one. There's another one where you have, oh yeah, that's what I was looking for. You're poi spinning.
Oh yeah. That's cool.
How is that to look back on this from 2008, 9, your first burn and this point in time?
It's pretty cool because the first burn I looked a little scared. Yeah. I think most people are a little bit, they're excited, but they're like also a little like, oh my God, it's fire, it's gonna burn me. And then yeah, it's fun to watch this too, because I mean I always just felt it from the inside, right? So I had no idea what I looked like,
Hmm.
so it's kind of cool to see that. We got some good shots too. Oh yeah. That was my color phase. That's a horse cow, right?
Hmm.
Was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I have one other picture up here, which I don't know where, oh, it's this one from,
Oh, that's fun.
yeah. It's like you can't even really tell the fire, but this was one of my favorite pictures with the butterfly behind your head. This kind of speaks to this moment a little bit. You mentioned you feel like you're going in your cocoon.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. Thanks for keeping all those and
Yeah, I
sharing
have
them.
so
That's
much.
really cool. I think I must have some of those, not the videos though. I don't have any of the videos, but like those are yours. So but that's pretty cool. That's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll release the video out at some point onto YouTube. And so it'll be there to watch. And I'm kind of doing the podcast and talking to people right now. Just I'm going back through time. And then there's some people who have not wanted to do this. They're just not comfortable with it. Um,
Really?
but yeah, there's so far, this is the seventh episode. It's kind of a fun little journey. So I know I didn't send it to you in advance, but like I'm kind of just moving through, the years. And but it takes a lot of it's not comfortable to come onto camera and talk about these things, right?
Right. It's funny because I love to talk to people if they ask me questions in real life, but as soon as the camera comes on, I'm like, oh my God, like, a lot of like my mind goes blank. So I'm pretty comfortable talking to people in real life, but then there is something kind of intimidating about your words being crystallized somewhere. There's a flexibility in real life when you say something, right? And it's like, and you could go back and be like amend it or change it or say, I don't feel that way, whatever. But like when you have like the video or like an actual interview, it's like it feels like a bigger commitment to what you're saying, somehow. And that feels a little bit, for me, that's the part that feels intimidating. But this is a fun topic to talk about. So it's a little easier for me to talk about this, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this video, talking on video, is like ultimate mirror work, in my opinion. It doesn't, it's taken a lot. Like I really haven't been comfortable doing it, but ultimately part of doing it through, this Ring of Fire channel and then also the other one, Radiant Souls, is getting over those, that really uncomfortable feeling of communicating, speaking, having a succinct message, showing up, even in being in conversation, it's like, oh, am I going to ask the right question? And like,
Yeah.
am I going to miss something? All the little things that come up are in there. And we're just right there. Whereas, in person, in a performance on stage, I'm super comfortable in those places, but this has not been. So I understand when I've asked people and they're like, like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
totally get it.
Well, and as I get older, I feel like I'm entering that phase of life where it's time now to be a teacher or to talk about your experiences and again kind of going back to the inspiring aspect of things like telling my story so that others could be like, "Oh, I see myself in that," and like and and yet I'm so afraid to because of that. It is very uncomfortable, and so it's like this is a nice way to like kind of break the ice and go ahead and be seen and be heard and like step out a little bit, and get a little bit more comfortable because I think that there's probably going to be more of that in my future.
Well, that is exactly what igniting creative inspiration with this podcast is about stepping out from behind the fire, right? We
Yeah.
can hide behind the fire, we can hide behind our art, we can hide behind what we've gotten comfortable with, and we're all at varying degrees of, stepping out in some way, whether it's seen, whether it's heard, whether it's seen and heard, whether it's whatnot. But there's something we've gotten comfortable with. And the idea is to get out of the comfort zone.
Hmm.
And for many years, the way that I've helped people with that is through fire dancing, right? First, it's with, the fire, then it's with getting on stage, right? And putting on the costumes or whatnot. And, now I feel like it's moved into this kind of a way where it's like, let's talk about it.
Yeah, because you
Yeah.
can you can definitely hide behind your moves and your costume, and that's still a character. When you're on stage, like you might be expressing yourself, but you're still kind of expressing the character of you. And
Mhm.
this is more like the you behind the character.
Right. It's just me in my living room,
Yeah.
you and yours. And one step beyond just got out of the shower, like, which is cool, but
I know.
yep,
Yay.
awesome. Okay, how did this feel for you today?
Good. It felt really good. Yeah.
Yeah, anything that you want to say in this moment that you feel like hasn't been communicated, any message you have for people, maybe artists, aspiring artists, about just people in life, people with body image issues? Do you have any messages that you would like to leave for the world?
Don't, well, okay, don't waste time like being an enemy to yourself. Make friends with yourself as much as you can today. And then also um, make time for yourself, especially for creatives. Like, we have a lot of distractions in the world, and there's things trying to eat up our time constantly, and there's the things that we willingly give our time to. We love to give our time to, like family and the things that we love. But there's other things that will try to distract you and just try to make yourself a focus. Like, focus some time for yourself, I think would be what I would want to tell other creatives. And it's okay to do it. Like, don't let anybody say that that's a selfish endeavor or anything like that. Like, you've got something to give and, you need time with yourself to feel what that is and like foster it and like bring it to life, and there's nothing selfish about that.
And what about a message for, since the body is such a huge part of your creativity, what about for the people who are, maybe they're creative or maybe they're not, but they're people that are, humans with a body and varying degrees of self-consciousness, judgment, criticism surrounding their body? What kind of message would you have for people?
I would go back to make friends with yourself as much as you can because it's so sad to wake up like later in life and realize how much energy and power and time you gave to fighting yourself because of what somebody else is saying about your body or somebody else is saying about you, whether it's society or that butthead on the street or whoever it was, like if it was actually a person or if it feels like it's societal pressure. Um, don't let them make you an enemy to yourself. There will be a time where you look back at, all these images of yourself that where you felt awful about yourself and wish that like, you had just been kinder, that you had, spent more time with yourself instead of fighting against yourself. And so the sooner that we can stop the war with ourselves, the better, and the more fuller your life's going to be, the happier you're going to be. And it's not based on whether or not your body changes. It's how much you love yourself and take time for yourself. So
Yeah, make friends with yourself. Alycia, when you looked at those pictures from you from back in the day,
mhm.
were you feeling like that about yourself back then?
Absolutely. I've been actually a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine passed recently. And so when that happens, I like to go through all my photos, find pictures of me with that person or pictures of that person or whatever. And and so that kind of also, I did the same sort of process recently of going back to all these pictures. And I remembered how much, like, I hate to say this, but like how much I really like hated myself and my body back then. And all this time and energy I put in towards like disliking myself and trying to change it constantly, and like, and to me it was just a very sad thing because it's like I was cute. Like why was I so caught up in this idea that like I was just this unacceptable like troll of a person or something. It was really kind of like this huge eye opener because I know how much time I spent worrying about it and being completely consumed by this obsession to change, like um whether it was like constantly going to the gym or constantly dieting, constantly restricting, constantly like kind of like punishing myself to make this change. um and I looked back and I was like, what the hell for? It was fine. I was fine. Like I should have been enjoying my time with these people instead of being so caught up in my head, or enjoying my time with myself, or like creating more art, like to me, it feels like the self loathing and the self punishment over these body ideals feels like stolen time. That's what it feels like. It feels like it stole a chunk of my life. It stole time. And I would hate for that to, and I know that's the case for a lot of other people, but it's like if I could impress upon people like don't let it steal your life, don't let it steal your time, don't let it steal your love for yourself, like like it's okay. It's great to like do things for your health and do things, do it out of love though, don't do it out of like hatred and to fit into what somebody else has said or a pressure, a societal pressure. So that was a huge thing for me, was kind of looking through all these photos. So it's interesting that you also like brought up photos from the past as well. Like it all kind of like fits with this, kind of process that I've been going through and really feeling like, dang, that was a lot of time and energy. And it took up like it rented space in my head. That's the other thing. It's not just the energy that you put in life of trying to change things. It's within you, right? Like it's like that mental space and that bringing you down so much for something that is just like it wasn't even really that real. not in the way that I thought it was.
So the past you looking like the past version of you didn't like yourself. The
No.
current version of you looks back and says, "Oh, why? You were so cute."
Yeah.
Does the current version of yourself see your beauty, your cuteness now and honor that?
I think better than I did when I was younger, right? Like, like I was straight up tormented as a younger person battling with this. Like it was bad, it was like the life's obsession, right? And I'm trying to make it not be the life's obsession. Like it's like you see the error in your ways. And I have to say, even with like some of the frustrations I've had lately with my body and myself, I have to say that my self image and my self acceptance and my self love is much greater than it was. So I'd have to say it's a process. And I'm not like all better. I don't like look at myself in the mirror and go like, well, that's a foxy bitch, like
Right.
necessarily, but I appreciate and I do see beauty in myself that I would have never seen 20 years ago. Never, and so it's progress, it's progress and it's a process.
Yeah, I think about, that like every rotation around the spiral is a new perspective,
You're right.
right? And as long as we are moving around, we're making that movement, then, the self-love, the self-appreciation, the self-acceptance can grow. And there's no time like the present to begin to accept ourselves as we are, because otherwise a future version of ourself will be looking back to this current self saying, why were you looking at yourself like that? You
Right.
were so cute. And that pattern will repeat. So the moment is where we have the opportunity to say, "Puh," like, let that go. Actually, what if I considered that the way that I express, present, am is the most beautiful, perfect, whole, complete expression of myself that I could possibly be. And anything beyond that is a distortion that I've been bought into believing that is actually a lie about myself, right?
Because it was absolutely a lie back then, and I do think about that. Like, what happens when I'm a little old wrinkly lady, and I'm looking back at my 46-year-old self going like, damn, like,
So this is your invitation.
yeah.
Your opportunity is now to be
Yeah.
that version of yourself that is whole and complete. And I feel like we're having a medicine spiral
I know.
conversation. I'm
Yeah,
like, wait a minute, like, hold on, this got a
like dealing
little,
with the same issue and it'll like, you know, it'll
yeah,
ignite something in them, but like, yeah, I mean, I do have to say that the way I view myself now is so much more healthier than it was. So there's definitely like there's leagues difference, I was like entrenched in like literal self-loathing and self-hatred at that point, and that's not here anymore. Like that's not residing in myself. Frustration, sure, but like, like there, it's so much better now, So, but I still also feel like there's, like we were talking about earlier, it's like, those cycles, like there's more layers to the onion. I can go deeper with my self-love and self-acceptance, and I see that there's like still more things to work on, even though
yeah,
it's so much better.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, do you feel complete here today? Well, actually, wait.
Yeah.
Are you taking clients? Can people work with you if they happen to be in the area or they want to fly from like, I don't know, like Bali to come get a tattoo here with you in California?
Yes, right now I'm booked out until for weekends it's September and weekdays it is August. So I am booked out of ways, but I'm definitely taking new clients. I love focusing on like, larger projects and stuff like that. All the little fun ones are cute too. Um, but I love working with people with some bigger visions and stuff like that, just because you can work out. I mean, the art's more fun, like so. Um, and I'm over at Leonardi Tattoo in Sacramento. You could find me on Instagram at Alycia Harr 33. You can look up Leonardi Tattoo. We do have a website,
I
And
will add the link into this so
oh,
that it links over to how to find you as well, both to your Instagram and to Leonardi Tattoo, so people can check out the studio as well. So,
yes. Yeah.
um, yeah, and you like, yeah, the bigger pieces
Yeah.
and from like you prefer ones that you're starting from the beginning as opposed to ones that where someone comes in with a garden already and you have to like clear the garden.
Yeah, I do that because I do like helping people love their tattoos, right? So it's like it's very like well, it kind of depends on what happened. You know, I don't want to step on other artists' toes or be disrespectful to other artists by working on their work. But if it's something where that relationship is dissolved and they're not going to go back to the person, and this is somebody that just wants to love that space on their body again, like I'm happy to help them with that, you know. I do love for some reason like when I get to work on a piece and like blend it into a new, you know, it's like I just like flow. So it's like however I can make that happen on people.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing, definitely.
Yeah,
Like we've been doing a lot of flowing and trying to clean up the garden a little bit on the back and but a lot of flowing. So
love flow. Love.
awesome. Okay, do you feel complete now?
I do. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
All
Yay.
right.